The streets of Nairobi were alive as always. Matt had us painted in neon graffiti, honking impatiently. Street vendors calling out their prices for roasted maize. Boda riders weaving dangerously between cars. Wanjiku stood at the corner of Tom Mboya Street, clutching a second-hand handbag she had bargained for at Gikamba the week before. She had just closed from her job at a small cosmetics shop, her legs aching from standing the whole day. At 24, Wanjiku's life was a mix of quiet dreams and noisy reality. Born in Murang'a, she had moved to Nairobi after high school, full of hope that the city would open its doors wide for her. Instead, she found herself living in a cramped bedsitter in Umoja, sharing a bathroom with 5 other tenants and counting every shilling to survive. That was before she met Brian. It had been a rainy Thursday evening when he first walked into the shop where she worked. Tall, clean-shaven, with a smile that could melt stone, Brian asked for a bottle of cologne. But it wasn't the perfume he was really interested in. It was her. "You should be the one selling me this fragrance," he said with a playful smirk, "but also the one wearing it." Wanjiku laughed shyly, not used to such direct compliments. They talked for a few minutes as she wrapped his purchase, and before he left, he slid his number across the counter. That night, she sat on her bed, staring at his neatly written digits. Something about him was different. He looked like a man who knew what he wanted. And he wanted her. Their first date was at a small cafe on Moi Avenue. Brian arrived in a dark blue Toyota Premio, the kind of car that hinted at steady money. Over cups of chai and mandazi, he told her about his work in real estate, his ambitions to buy a house in Kilimani, and how he admired a simple, humble woman like her. Over the next few months, Brian swept her into a world she had only imagined. Late-night drives to KICC rooftop, Nyama Choma dinners in Westlands, impromptu gifts, handbags, shoes, and once, a smartphone that made her friends' eyes widen with envy. But Wanjiku noticed something early on. Brian liked to be in control. He decided where they went, when they met, and how often they talked. Sometimes, he would disappear for days without explanation, only to reappear with the same charming smile and a vague excuse about work being crazy. Her best friend, Njeri, warned her more than once. "Shiku, a man who loves you won't be switching off his phone at night," Njeri said one Saturday afternoon as they sat at Mama Olaich's eating tilapia. Wanjiku shrugged. "He's busy, Njeri. Not every man is cheating just because he's not answering calls." But deep down, a quiet fear was growing. By the 9th month of dating, Brian had grown more distant. Their dates became rare. His once frequent calls turned into short, "What's up?" texts. And when they did meet, he always seemed distracted, his eyes darting to his phone. It was during one of those uneasy weeks that the idea came to her. The idea had been planted in Wanjiku's mind long before Brian's calls became rare. She had heard stories from other women in Umoja, whispered in salons, and over plates of chips may. If you get pregnant, the man will have to stay. It sounded simple. A child, she thought, would tie Brian to her forever. He would have no choice but to commit. He would see her not just as a girlfriend, but as the mother of his child, a permanent part of his life. That Sunday afternoon, Wanjiku sat on her narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of her bedsitter. The rain tapped against the iron sheet roof like impatient fingers. She thought about how Brian's eyes had been drifting lately when they talked, how he sometimes avoided meeting her altogether. Her phone buzzed. It was a short text from Brian. Busy today. Will call you tomorrow. No apology. No explanation. Wanjiku's chest tightened. She knew she had to act fast before he slipped away entirely. That evening, she called her friend and Jerry. I've decided, she said firmly. I'm going to have his baby. There was silence on the line. Shiku, you think that will keep him? And Jerry's voice was careful, almost pitying. It will, you'll see, Wanjiku insisted. Over the next 2 months, she made sure to spend more time with Brian whenever he was available. She was careful not to bring up the idea of commitment too strongly. She didn't want him to suspect her plan. When the day finally came, and she saw the faint pink line on the pregnancy test strip, her heart raced. She imagined Brian's face lighting up, imagined him hugging her tightly, imagined him telling her, now we're a family. The next evening, she invited him over. The scent of fried tilapia filled the small bedsitter. She had even borrowed a nicer tablecloth from Jerry to make the place look more welcoming. When he arrived, Brian seemed in a good mood. They ate, laughed, and talked about random things, the chaotic traffic on Thika Road, a viral video they had both seen. After dinner, she took a deep breath. I have news, she said, her voice trembling with excitement. Brian looked at her curiously. What's up? I'm pregnant. For a moment, his face was unreadable. Then he leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Pregnant? Yes, she smiled. We're going to have a baby. He nodded slowly, then smiled faintly. Wow, okay, that's big news. Wanjiku's heart swelled. He wasn't jumping for joy, but he didn't look angry either. She took that as a good sign. Over the next few weeks, Brian's visits actually increased. He brought her groceries from Naiva's, drove her to her first antenatal clinic at Kenyatta Hospital, and even sent her money for baby clothes. For a moment, it seemed her plan had worked. And Jerry noticed the glow on Wanjiku's face. You're really happy, aren't you? She asked one afternoon as they walked through Eastleigh buying fabric. Yes, Wanjiku said, rubbing her belly. I told you, this baby will keep him close. She didn't know that the city was already carrying whispers. Whispers that would soon shatter her dream. The first sign came on a Friday night. Brian had promised to pass by after work with some cravings. She'd asked for roasted maize and avocado. She had been waiting since 7 p.m., dressed in her softest chitinge dress, the one he always said made her look like a proper African queen. By 10 p.m., he still hadn't arrived. His phone went unanswered. On WhatsApp, the 2 blue ticks mocked her. The last seen read 9:46 p.m. When he finally called the next morning, his voice was smooth, calm, almost too calm. "Sorry, babe. Work ran late. I didn't want to disturb you, so I just went home." Wanjiku swallowed her irritation. "You could have at least sent a text." "I said I'm sorry, Shiku. Let's not fight, okay? I'll make it up to you." He did make it up. The next day, he took her to a Nyama Choma joint in Kaileshwa. He smiled, fed her pieces of tender meat, and talked about baby names. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. 2 weeks later, that seed grew. Wanjiku was in the middle of folding baby clothes she had bought from Toy Market when her neighbor, Mama Scola, knocked on her door. Shiku," she said, stepping inside. "Don't be shocked by what I'm about to tell you." Wanjiku's hands froze over a tiny pink onesie. "What is it?" "You know Brian?" "Yes. I heard from my cousin in Rongai that he's been seeing another woman. A serious one. People are saying wedding plans are in motion." Wanjiku laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. "A wedding? Mama Scola, please. Brian is with me. We're expecting a child. I'm just telling you what I heard. This Nairobi, men have surprises." That night, Wanjiku tossed and turned. She told herself it was just gossip. People in Nairobi loved to talk. Still, she decided to check Brian's social media. His Instagram was private, as always. His Facebook had no new posts. But one photo on a friend's page caught her attention. Brian, wearing a sharp gray suit, standing next to a light-skinned woman in a green dress. The caption read, "Power couple vibes." Her heart pounded. She zoomed in. The woman's hand rested on Brian's chest in a way that wasn't casual. The next time Brian came over, Wanjiku tried to act normal. "So, who's that girl in the green dress on your friend's page?" she asked lightly. Brian's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before returning. "Ah, that's just a friend from work. Don't start overthinking." She forced a laugh. "I'm not overthinking, just asking." But his tone had changed. He stayed only an hour before claiming he had early meetings. The next day, it was a Tuesday afternoon when the bomb finally dropped. Wanjiku was scrolling Facebook while sipping uji when a video popped up on her feed. The title made her stomach flip. "Congratulations, Brian and Faith. A love worth celebrating." She tapped it, and there he was. Brian, her Brian, standing under a white floral arch in Karen, holding hands with the woman in the green dress, now wearing a white gown. Guests clapped as they exchanged rings. Her mug slipped from her hands, spilling uji across the floor. The video kept playing, each frame pounding into her chest like a hammer. When it ended, she sat in silence. The sounds of the city, mad-hattas, vendors, distant music, faded into nothing. All she could hear was her own breathing. Wanjiku didn't sleep that night. The images from the video replayed over and over. Brian smiling as Faith placed the ring on his finger, his voice trembling slightly as he said, "I do." By 6 a.m., her eyes were red and swollen. She hadn't cried, not yet. The tears were trapped somewhere deep, as if her body was still in shock. Her phone buzzed, a text from Brian. "Morning, Shiku. I'll pass by later this week. Hope you're feeling okay." She stared at